All right. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever you are in the world. Welcome. This is the free PTE Masterclass. I'm Bernardo, a Brazilian who managed to get the permanent residency really quick in just 11 months after I moved to Australia and taking the test 7 times. Seven, right? I built a crocodile skin for these exams, right? And today I've already taken 14 times just to make sure what I teach is actually working on the real exam, right? Even after the changes last August 2025. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to my YouTube channel. It will help you accelerate your permanent residency. It will help you to accelerate your permanent residency and get a better life forever. And here's what we're gonna cover today. It's time in times of uncertainty. I know that's political issues everywhere, but the smartest move is to focus on your permanent residency, your future, your family future, right? Even though there's a lot of noise going on and it's been hard and it's more difficult and stuff, I'm gonna show you here. No doubt the best move is to concentrate on that. The new PTE model, the test has changed. There's a lot of recent changes, a couple of surprises, and I'm also going to have a challenge for you, right? Now, if you feel lost after the PTE changes and don't know what to do, or have a sponsorship opportunity waiting for you in Australia or Canada and need the English test, are already in Australia or Canada or New Zealand, but don't know how to move forward in your permanent residency, or is still in your home country planning or thinking about moving to your favorite country to work or study overseas, you need to watch this entirely webinar, right? Because you're going to learn how to accelerate your permanent residency through the English test using the new PT study method. Now you might be thinking, Bernard, I'm scared, I'm insecure, the test has changed, and my English isn't that great. And that's exactly why I create an environment of people sharing their results. Real people with difficulties, with English not so good, not perfect English, working hard. And you can see a lot of Instagram's profiles in a bio saying 5,000 students or 2 million students. But how many passed the exam? That's the real question, right? And I have proof. I'm counting. If I didn't lose count, 462 students passed the test using the method, right? Migrants just like you, and for them, is they passed the exam, right? They didn't have the results. They studied with us. They got the results, and now either they got a permanent residency already, or they are really close to get it, right? And it's just a matter of time to change their lives. I'm gonna show you a quick video showing a couple of students telling their story.
I used to be super insecure. I was sure that my English wasn't good. At first, I thought it would be impossible, honestly. Then there came a time when I said, oh my God, I don't understand. I know my English level isn't good. I knew that in order to improve, I would have to go to school, I would have to study for a long time. And I knew that at the same time, I didn't have money, nor did I have time to do that because of the way I speak and because of my, for goodness sake, it was impossible. And then I would have to do it 10, 15 times, 20 times. I was already embarrassed at my job. When I would arrive, they would say, hey, Aline, hey, what's up? What happened? I said I didn't pass. I to have died of a broken heart. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I was blown away. It was unbelievable.
Delicious, right? Top-notch guitar from 82.
Oh, no, absolutely not. It was absolutely incredible. I had absolutely no idea. I received a score of 90 on the spinking. When I saw 73, I was like, there's no way, man. So then I sat down, I looked at my husband and said, I passed the exam. Can't believe I passed. Then he cries, and all that movie comes to mind. And I never imagined that the spinking was my highest grade. I got a 76 on the spinking. Where from? Where from?
And that big smile doesn't lie right now in heaven.
At the moment, I am happy about this thing.
You can actually see the difference in their face, right? While they are struggling, and then after the after the results, right? They're smiling, they're saying that it was hard, it's not Alice in Wonderlands, it's gonna be difficult, it's gonna be hard, but it's possible, right? And here's something important. It's not the very first time that the test has changed, right? And to be honest, nobody knows if the test is going to change again. I don't think so. I don't believe that because it's going to be a lot of consequences, I should say. But what I can guarantee is this: 462 families are already taking the test and with the results. If the test change, if something happens, they got the results, right? And the tendency, the trend is for this process of permanent residency getting harder and harder, right? And then you may feel that you should have started earlier, right? I always recommend go on YouTube channel and watch at least one case, just like you, right? Working a person working at two jobs, working on the weekends, are still in their home country, planning to move, or validating their degrees, or have scholarships, or work as a cleaner with little English. And when you see one of those people, just like you're pretty similar to you, your mind starts thinking, maybe one day it's gonna be me. And then your life never go back again. Now you're gonna see, and if you watch it, at least one or two, you're gonna see people passing pretty quick, a couple of months, a couple of weeks. But with me, it wasn't like that. My wife got a scholarship in Sydney for 1 year. First thing I did was to look for information, to look for people who had already got the permanent residency, right? That's the if you leave this webinar with one little skill, is what Tony Robbins called modeling. Model successful people, right? Follow them, ask them questions, do the exact the same thing that they did. You're probably gonna get the same results. And a friend of mine was living in Brisbane, and he was the very first person who told me about the migration program in the government. It was my very first light at the end of the tunnel, and that's what I want to be for you guys here, right? The light in the end of the tunnel. I started researching my path through civil engineering, and I realized that I have to validate my diploma. And the first step was the English test. And I was just thinking, butterfly in my stomachs, in English expression, butterfly in my stomach. And while I was still in Brazil, I took the IELTS because I didn't know that other tests was accepted and even existed. And yes, you can do the PTE all around the globe, but IELTS is pretty famous, and people who are thinking to go to Canada think about CELBIP. But PTE is accepted in Canada as well, right? Actually, in Australia, there are 6 tests. And let me ask you something. If there are some tests or one test that is easier than the others, why are you taking the other ones? Why? Anyway, I took the IELTS and I got a decent score, enough to validate my diploma. But I knew it wasn't enough to get the permanent residency. I took more tests, like 3 different courses in person, private classes. I did IELTS 3 times, 8 months of study, almost 1 year studying IELTS, and my score didn't improve, right? I had no motivation to study. That feeling when you have to do something, but you procrastinate just because it's so painful. That was me. Then February 2018, I moved to Australia because my wife had to start her studies. And like most migrants, I got waiter. I was working as a waiter in construction, walking dogs because rent is expensive, and I need to make money at that time to actually survive in Australia, right? I wasn't I wasn't able to plan a holiday or something to do with my money, something to how much what would I earn, because if I got shifts, I would work and I would receive money. If I didn't have shifts, I was actually looking for jobs, right? Very hard to live. On top of that, you have school, which is really expensive just for the visit. If it's expensive and you learn something that's going to change your life, it's, well, a pretty good deal, right? But just because of the visa, plus you don't know if the visa is going to be granted again, right? Nothing's guaranteed. Change after change in the government, you always go to sleep thinking, if my visa is not granted, what happens? Basically, I was just working to pay bills, right? The circle, right? The rat race. I make money, I spend money. I make money, I spend money. And one day I stopped, and I want you guys to think about this. If you keep doing this, you never get out of this. You will never get out of it. You have to stop and rip it off. And because if you continue, you're gonna be spin the wheel, spin the wheel, spin the wheel, and go back to your home country, right? And I said, I need to change because I'm a civil engineer. I'm losing um, opportunity, right? And I became obsessed with the English test and the permanent residency. And I met my Chinese friend, who was also an engineer and looking for the PR and doing the English test, and he wasn't doing the IELTS. Why? Because it's easier, right? And I was about to change tests. I was like, oh, I have always, I have almost mastered the IELTS. Should I change the test and start all over from scratch? You know what? I'm writing this. Let's give it a try. I took the PT, and guess what? Same results as the IELTS. And I thought, it's not easy at all, right? I went back to my friend, and he told me, you need to learn the specific techniques for each question. Each question type has a specific technique, specific strategy that you have to master in order to get good grades. And that's how I changed it. I was like, now I want to know exactly what these techniques are. And I want to ask to study with his teacher, but he only teaches Chinese people. I had no choice. I went to the streets. I was learning different methods. Completely lost. I was going to school in the city, wasting a lot of time and money to get the train and get there, and learning something here, testing the test, right? Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work. And the worst thing to do is to follow different people, right? One person say, do this way, you're gonna get great marks. And the other one, no, don't do this way, you're gonna get killed. Sometimes they completely contradict each other, right? And so what do you do in this case? You start testing, right? To find out, you pay the test to actually try if it's gonna work, right? How do you focus on the studying in a situation like that, right? And I remember one moment I was actually proud of myself that I was teaching my friend, my Chinese friend, something that he didn't know. I created a couple of methods as well, not just discovered, but I created. Was like, now I'm on the boat, right? I'm on the right path because the Chinese people are so much more intelligent, right? Now, picture this. I've done the test 6 times with no real results, grabbing my backpack and going to the library to study the freaking PTE test. What was going what was going on in my mind? It's not for me. It's not going to work. I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting my money, right? But then, after a couple of trial and errors, I mastered the PT. Got the got full marks, 96%. Got the invitation after 30 days. My birthday, I got the invitation. I got the visa in January 2019. Remember, I moved to Australia in February 2018. January 2019, I got the visa. 2 weeks after, I got an engineering job, $100,000 per year, plus super 10%, like 10,000 on top of that, plus company car, plus the cell phone. Big change, right? Completely big change in the starting point, right? As a waiter, you don't really have a career progression, right? And this is this was my entry point, right? $100,000 per year. That's a lot of money. I could bring my dog to Australia. I could travel along around the world with my wife. And the best part, when we were trying to get pregnant, we got incentive from the government to do the IVF. My wife got 12 months of paid leave, 8 months of paid leave, and 4 months of unpaid leave, so 12 months off work. And the second time, when she was going back to 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 go back to work, she booked a meeting with her boss and told her that she would like to return to work, but part time in home office. And her boss said, "I'm glad you're going back to work." And that's how powerful we are in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, because they need us, right? They have no choice. They need us. They need us migrant. Liking or not, they need us, right? And we had a second baby. She is still on maternity leave until April, 8 months paid, right? And we are giving our kids the best gift ever, our presence, right? I run my own business. She's on maternity leave, and we're pretty present on the first 6 years of my my child, right? And after all this happened to my life, I was like, I have to share this knowledge. I cannot stay quiet just because everything worked out for me. Now I'm gonna throw this knowledge away and keep growing my life, right? Keep growing as a person. And I actually forgot about the three investment property that gives me at least $200,000 a year without me to have without having without me having to work. I can sleep the whole afternoon here and still get 200,000 at least per year. So a lot of change. And I was like, I have to put my mouth in the world so more people are able to enjoy this whole thing, right? And you might be thinking, Bernardo, this was back in 2018. There's so many changes after that, right? Is it really working still? I kept doing the test. For my visa, I did the test 7 times, right? I did another 7 times without having to do it, right? I felt like a investigator inside the PT test because I didn't actually need the test, but I did it 7 times again just to make sure it's still working, right? Because if I teach you how to pass the PT test, something that it doesn't work, sooner or later my business will go down, right? Right. Just for you to get a sense of how many people Australia and Canada needs, right? Australia is the sixth largest country in the world with around 25 million people, right? Canada is even bigger, 38, even bigger, right? It has around 38 million people, right? The United States alone has more than 400 million people. Brazil, 220 million people, right? That's these both countries has 10% of the population, 10% of its real capacity, right? So they need people. And every time I say, and you hear me saying, they need people, they need us, they need workers. In your head, I want you to think as an opportunity for us, right? And just like in real estate, right? If you invest in real estate 20 years ago, it was but the best timing, right? A lot of growth. The second best timing is now, because in 20 years from now, you're going to regret not buying anything today, right? The same applies to permanent residency. A good times passed, right? My grandfather, the uncle of my grandfather, got the permanent residency from going from Austria to Sydney. As he arrives in the port, he got the permanent residency, right? Just showing up, right? Now these times are gone, and from here moving forward, probably it's going to get more difficult and more difficult. And if you don't do nothing right now because it's difficult, wait 5 or 10 years and you're going to see the real difficulty and you're going to regret it. Say, 10 years ago was so much easier. I should have got it, right? Like me. I got it in 2018, 19 actually. It was way easier for civil engineers, right? Now it's more still possible, but it's harder than it was for me, right? And I'm glad I did it because no one can take it away from me, right? There's more than 21,000 jobs only on Seek for Australia alone, right? And what else? Just two things, right? I interviewed at least 102 students who passed the test using my method, and I saw a couple of common things. Two common things, right? First one, nobody has extra time, right? No one, not one student came to me and said, Bernard, I'm free on Tuesday and Thursday, have nothing to do, and I'm willing to start studying PTE. Nobody tells me that, right? Everybody's working hard. There's no time, and you're going to see with your own eyes people waking up at 5 a.m. to study, or staying awake late at night just to study to fit at least 30 minutes or 40 minutes in the tight schedule, right? Second thing, everybody's scared. No one is confident. No, my English is so good. My English is so good. I'm the man, right? But I feel, wait. Nobody's that confident, right? Pretty hard to find a really confident person like that, right? We all feel scared, especially when you book the test. And I have a challenge for you. I told you I have a challenge, right? I want you guys to imagine, type in the chat or on the comments below, which date are you going to take the test? And I want to picture yourself doing the test that specific date. After this little visualization, I want you never go back again. Never, never again. Right? The power of pushing you forward. All right. 4 steps for you to succeed in the PT exam. Right? First one, the order of priority. There are 22 tasks in the test, right? For Canadians, there's only 21 tasks, roughly 20, right? And it's split in 3/3, right? That's the top 7, top priority. There's the middle 7, and that's the least important ones, the 7 or 8 questions that are not very important, of course. We're gonna practice. I want you guys to learn them all, right? Because every little point counts, but you're not gonna study as intense as the top ones, right? And which are the top 7? The ones which are scored by humans. That's the big change of the PT, basically. There are 7 question types that are marked by humans. Not only humans, but are marked by humans, which are 4 in the speaking part, describe image or tell lecture, point to a situation, and summarize group discussion. 2 on the writing part, summarize written text and essay, and 1 in the listening part, which is summarize spoken text. That's the 7 human scored tasks, which is the top priority because they are putting a lot of effort in these tasks, right? They're putting the most expensive thing in the world, which is human capital, right? Human time to actually score you, right? That's the 7 tasks that you need to master, right? And then there will be the 7 middle ones, not very important, but still impactful in your marks. And the last third, not very important, but you're still gonna practice them out, right? Second step, the rules of each task, right? If you're playing volleyball and you don't know the rules, you're gonna lose silly points, right? You can be tall and strong, better than me, right? I'm small and weak. And you look at both of us, Bernard's gonna lose, right? If he, tall and strong, step in the line to serve, the point is mine. Double touch, the point is mine. Touch the net, the point is mine. If he doesn't know the rules, I'm gonna win the game, right? And this tall and strong means good English, right? If you're very good in English, but you still don't know the rules, it's not going to happen, right? Because you need, for example, I'll give you some examples. I'll give you some examples in the rules of the game, and then the last two steps, right? There's a task called summarize written text, which in Australia you need to write from 5 words to 75 words, right? And you might think, the more I write, the more points I will get. Same applies to essay, right? You need to write up to 300 words, right? From 200 to 300. And you might think, the common sense is the more I write, the more points I will get. And it's the opposite, right? If I don't know the rules and I start writing like crazy, right? I'm gonna waste time that I could be checking, right? I will be more tired during the test because I'm spending more energy, more concentration. If I was about to write only 35 to 45 words on the summarized written text, which is the optimum, right? Not not very little, not very much, right? Very little, you're compromising your score. Very much, you're compromising your energy, right? And the essay, after 200 words, the score is the same for everyone, right? I tell my students, write 205 words, just to make sure you get it right, right? Nothing more than that. Use this extra time for you to check your spelling, your grammar, your coherence, because it's really important now, because the human touch, right? The human touch is the most important thing. It's coherence, right? You need to make sense on the test, on your speech, on your writing. And the speaking part, there's no more templates. Forget about this, right? If you're old school to PTE, forget about this part, right? Now we're doing structure, right? Different from template, right? It's just like when you go to a restaurant and the waiter brings you the menu, right? You're not gonna order everything. You tell them the waiter, you can bring me everything, right? No, the menu, you have to choose, right? Couple of things that make sense with your appetite at the moment, right? Same applies to our structure in the workbook. I'm going to share you guys the workbook I give my students, so you get a sense of what to choose, right? In a task called summarize group discussion, you're going to hear 3 people discussing a specific topic, right? And you're going to take notes of each specific person, and then you're going to give your speech. And I'm going to share this screen. I'm going to just quickly go through the workbook. You're going to see nothing really fancy, but it does the job, right? That's the structure, right? It's not a template, right? The first speaker talked about, and then you read your notes, right? He seems emotion. He seems like confused and stressed. Depends on the audio, right? You're not going to use this all the time, right? This is just like the menu in the restaurant, right? He had a particular concern about updating his website, right? If he had a particular concern, right? He also mentioned something interesting, which was around now. We keep going to the second speaker. You have to decide here. You have to decide here. Here she was not very good at something as well, or she was very good at something as well, especially when you give an explanation. In the beginning of the workbook, you see, 3 speakers were talking about topic, especially explanation, right? For example, the 3 speakers were talking about whales in the ocean, especially about pollution and the overfishing, for example, right? There's a little bit of this explanation to get, you can make more sense in the example, right? These are the couple of things you're gonna face in the speaking part, for example. And the third step is to practice with feedback. Don't practice alone. Don't trust the AI scoring your exercises, because on the real test there will be a human touch on the scoring, right? So you're not gonna you it's a it's a not very good strategy to trust AI alone, right? Of course, there will be practicing alone at home, right? But you gotta have a human touch, right? It's not sexy, right? But you gotta sit down and receive feedback with someone who is ahead of you, right? That's how you make progress. And you'll be asking questions in English, right? Because now I only teach in English. My Brazilian students are struggling a little bit, but that's how we push, we build the muscle, right? And get your exercises scored by humans, right? Who knows what they're doing, and get involved in a community, right? Because no one goes further alone, right? It's way more fun, and way more productive to get connected to a community focused on the real exam, focus on growing and getting the permanent residency, not just gamblers or talk about it or I've done it and I didn't pass, so it's not gonna work. It's hard. This kind of person, right? You need to be like a positive group of people, right? And the fourth step, that was the third step, practice with feedback, right? And the fourth step is mock tests. In the last week, what I tell my students to do is at least three mock tests. Let's say, right? You can adapt the days of the week, but let's say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, three different mock tests, right? Really intense, 2 hours alone, no water, no toilets, no cell phone, just answering the whole freaking test, right? And at the end of each mock test, you gotta reflect on it, right? What went well, what was good, what was not so good, so you can learn and build on top of each other, right? Three mock tests: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday, day off, right? Queen's Day or King's Day. You do something you really like, you relax, you give your brain some oxygen, right? If you feel like studying a little bit, yes, but it's a uh, productive rest, right? And then you go to do the test on Friday. That's the pretty much the very last week I tell my students to follow. If you're not doing the test on Friday or Saturday or Wednesday, you arrange your week in the last 5 days, right? Pretty much. Day 1, 2, 3 mock test. Day 4 rest, and then day 5 you actually do the test, right? That's pretty much the standard of my students, right? And now let me reply a couple of questions that appears on my Instagram every week, at least not every day but every week. Bernardo, my English is basic. It's basic. Can I still pass? Of course, you're going to need the English, right? Especially now after the changes. The more English you have, the better you're going to go in the test, right? It's not enough to have good English, but good English and good strategy follows along and give you more chance to get a great score, right? From now on, introduce the English every day in your life, every a couple of times during the day, right? Just like me, I'm speaking a lot now. I can see my English is getting better because I'm recording videos, I'm teaching in English. I can actually feel my English becoming better, right? And also in the program, which is I'm about to show you, you're gonna have an English teacher holding your hand with basic grammar, collocation, vocabulary, pronunciation, right? They're gonna have these classes as well as a complement to the program, right? And not only you're gonna get good marks on the test, you're gonna, as a side effect, you're gonna improve your English. And how long do I need to study? My program, the program actually is 10 weeks, right? It's a little bit intense, but it's doable. And let's say 12 weeks, 3 months, right? 3 months, I think it's little bit of the max, right? Longer than that, you start to procrastinate, right? If you put in your mind, 10 weeks from now, I'm gonna be doing the test. you're gonna you're gonna your approach changes, right? Because if you think I'm gonna do the test this year, there's no urgency, right? You're not gonna sit down today, tonight, and study. If you book, I book already booked my test. I paid for my test, and I have to study. I have to figure out the answers in 3 months. You feel the energy changing, right? You're pushing yourself like positive pressure. I call it. Right. Now I'm gonna talk about this program, right? If you guys allow me to talk about the three pillars, really simple, right? First pillar is the live implementation with immediate feedback. No, live feedback with immediate implementation, right? We go live and we actually implement the technique. It's not like going live and learning more, right? We're not going to go anywhere learning more. You have to actually implement what you have already learned, right? And get instant feedback from me and the English teacher together to actually get our hands dirty and actually do some exercise together. And you're gonna get out of these implementation days with exercises done and corrected, right? Second pillar, of course, there will be some weeks that you're not going to be able to participate in every single live event, but we do have a platform 24/7 available for you to watch all the recordings, right? And the third pillar, a strong ecosystem, right? Connections, a WhatsApp group with people really focused, right? I don't I don't sign up people who are dabbling, who are negative person, right? What else? And you're gonna get workbooks so you can download. You're gonna get 2 to 3 live classes every week, different time zones. You're gonna get unlimited corrections on your exercise. You're gonna get individual access to my WhatsApp, so you can send me anything, picture, audio, video, right? Anything you want to send me. At least I reply everybody within 2 business days and 6 months of access, right? So you can have peace of mind. And the price. Me alone, I spent almost $7,000 just doing the test, just for you guys to save this money, right? So you're not trying error. I've done the hard lifting for you, right? And 6 months of access, live and recorded sessions, 2 live sessions per week, community access, WhatsApp group, full access to my WhatsApp. If you want to send a question or a task or anything you want, you have access to my WhatsApp. And the value of the program is 700 Australian dollars, right? Plus 14 days of guarantee. If you sign up now and you don't like it for some reason, you have 14 days to experience, to see the recordings, to watch, to participate in the live sessions. If you think it's not gonna get you anywhere, I give you 100% of your money back. 14 days, right? 2 weeks. No one offers this for you, right? And for this particular webinar, you can join now for 597 Australian dollars, right? 597. You can use Afterpay, installments, Brazilian credit cards, international credit cards, and I told you guys there was some couple of surprises, right? 2 surprises, right? Instead of 6 months, you're gonna get 12 months, the full year of intense PTE strategies. And instead of 597, you're gonna get the whole program for $497, right? Till this Sunday, right? Only until this Sunday, $200 off, right? And plus, the first 10 students will get one-on-one with me pre-test, right? When you book your test and you studied everything 1 or 2 weeks before the test, you book a time with me, and we're going to go through some the last final pieces of your strategy, and you're going to get very good chance to get good marks, right? That's all for it. That's all for now. I'm gonna be sending you the link. The link is gonna be below here, right? In the this video. You have a couple of days to think about it. Send me your questions, send me your worries. Yeah, take advantage of Afterpay if you need. And I see you next week. We're gonna start. I'm gonna see you inside the program. So excited to serve you in the highest level possible I can. And I see you there.